Welcome, Twitter women. I see people joining in. Awesome. Cool. Cool. So I guess let's just start keeping the time scheduled for like such an interesting talk. I would want to like give speakers enough time to share more and more stuff. Cool. So welcome, Twitter women. Welcome, Breaking the Glass team. Thank you so much, first of all, for agreeing to do this amazing session. I just can't wait to attend and like really see what you have for us here. Especially, I was so enticed with the title itself, building the brand. I'm looking to build one for myself. And I've seen Mindy, I think she's a real motivator here. Cool. So let me just start by introducing the partnership manager of Breaking the Glass, Elizabeth Lamb. She is working with Breaking the Glass, and Breaking the Glass, just to like let you know, it's a women's women's career development initiative organization, which kind of works around solving and addressing issues with we as a women go through in like career life or even outside. And with Elizabeth, people who are joining us are Hannah McKins, who is also actually I'm so super sorry. I actually missed the whole draft of the introduction. But yeah, Hannah is the principal account manager at Computer Futures. Jana Hill is the senior manager, online UX at the Home Depot. And last but not the least, we have Mindy in the room, who is the motivational speaker and the writer. So welcome you all. And I would pass it on to Elizabeth to take it from here.
Well, thank you. Yeah, before we get started, just thank you again to Twitter Women in Technology Group for welcoming us in and like working with us on this topic as well. Build Your Brand was a special request from Twitter, so we're really excited to deliver this amazing conversation to you. But before we get started too much, I know I just got introduced, but yeah, I'm Elizabeth Lamb, the Partnerships Manager for Breaking the Glass. What we do is we partner with tech companies and nonprofits, a lot of like candidate communities to provide free personalized programming on diversity and inclusion and women's career development topics. We have provided webinars for our partners like Walmart, IBM, Charter Communications, Women Who Code. So if you're involved with some sort of women in tech outside organization and you'd like to get us involved, I'd be happy to chat with you afterwards. I'll also drop my contact information and ways to follow along on Breaking the Glass. The webinar will feature a Q&A session at the end where you have two options. You can either chat into the Q&A box at the bottom, or you'll raise your hand and we can unmute you so you can chat with our speakers as well. We did that last week for the first time and it was a lot of fun. I felt like I was on a radio station. But yeah, so in a sec, I'm gonna be going on mute and off video. So I'll provide some resources in the chat. We'll also have a survey that'll go off at the end of the webinar. We would love for you to take that, provide some feedback, let us know what we're doing well. And also I'll be dropping the speaker's LinkedIn information. So get connected with them and continue the conversation. So without taking up any more of your time, I'm gonna pass our session over to our amazing moderator, Hannah, and I'll see y'all at the end. Have a good one.
Thanks so much, Elizabeth. So yeah, I'm going to be moderating today. My name's Hannah and I'm from Computer Futures. So I'm a principal account manager and Salesforce recruiting manager. So I work directly with Salesforce clients, and one of our clients is actually Twitter. So I'm really excited to be here today because I do work closely with Twitter, placing Salesforce candidates on their team. And building personal brand is really important to me as a recruitment person. I need to have a brand for myself, not only like on LinkedIn, but with my candidates and clients. So I'm really excited to learn today as well, and to introduce you to our panelists. So Mindy, did you want to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. I'm Mindy Henderson. I'm here in Austin, Texas, and my career has been long and wide. I spent 20 years in the high-tech industry, working in mostly professional services and software implementation. And then for the past 3 years, I've been working as a motivational speaker, a writer. I've got a book that is being published and will be out in fall of 2022. And I also recently joined the National Muscular Dystrophy Association as their editor-in-chief of their quarterly magazine, their newsletter, their blog, and I also host their podcast.
Wow, awesome. That's so great, Mindy. Thank you. I don't know how you're going to follow this up, Jana, but if you can introduce yourself.
Yep, I was just thinking you could have let me go first, Hannah. Hello, welcome everyone. So I'm Jana Hill, and I am the senior UX manager at the Home Depot, UX manager for several years now, but I'm a designer by trade. So that's how I got into this world. Definitely figured out pretty early on that as much as I love design, I love solving problems and managing folks much more, providing, those mentorship opportunities specifically around women. I'm also out of the Austin area, although from my home, you might gather that I'm a little bit outside of town, but that is where I'm based in terms of working. But yeah, let's see. I guess the only thing I could possibly compete with Mindy is that I'm also, as a side hustle, run a wedding venue with my sister part-time. So if anybody really wants to know what torture is like, yeah, feel free to reach out to me and I'll let you in on that secret. But yes, that's all I got, Mindy. I'm sorry. You win.
That is very cool. I love that.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, so excited to have you both here. So we'll kick it off. We'll get into these questions and I'll kind of start off with one or the other, and then, feel free to hop in. I'd love to hear from both of you. And I think everyone would like to, hear some different perspectives on all of these questions. So for the first one, we'll start off with you, Jana. So in terms of developing a personal brand, it can be both time and monetary commitment. So how has investing in a personal brand benefited you?
Oh, that's a really great question. I think, that's something even in my time at the Home Depot, I've had a woman actually reach out to me this week specifically about it. She works on a different team than mine, but she also works on the app experience. And she wanted to have that same conversation. I think that's one of those things that it can be hard, especially when you're starting out as a junior designer or just even new in your career field within the tech space. We work a lot of hours, right? Like everybody at their job, if they care and they're passionate about it, you're going to work more than 40 hours, let's be honest. But it's one of those things I try to level set with folks as much as possible. If you are really passionate about what you're doing and you really want to figure out not just how to create your personal brand, but how that's going to help elevate you to whatever your longer term goal is, you got to understand that we've all been there, that is a very normal thing. And you are going to have to invest both the time and money upfront to do that. So some of the ways in my world that I've done that is, if you're not great at public speaking, if doing something like this that we're doing right now sends you running and screaming for the hills, then work on that. Invest the time and invest the money to join things like Toastmasters. When I was early on in my career, especially as a designer, you probably have all had a similar circumstance where I would have folks make me cry in meetings. That's a very normal sort of thing that we do, right? When we're young and people are telling us that they don't like our work or they're, maybe picking a fight with us. I got an assertive coach. I totally did that and spent my own money and spent my own time teaching me how to, be able to stand up and deal with those emotions and not let it, get to me. Emotions are normal and healthy, but building that personal brand, especially as a woman in tech, you are going to have to be able to stare, some of those scarier people down in your career. It's just, that's the way it is. But specifically from, a design point of view, we work very closely with product teams. And very early on in my career, I realized that I needed to take the time and money and effort to go and engage in agile training myself. So I put myself through the workshop. I got my Scrum certification, completed. I think those are the sorts of things that enable you to have much better cross-functional conversations that will also set you apart in terms of building your brand and your career, because there are lots of folks in your world that won't do that, that won't take the time time early on to figure out, I need help in this area, or if, I want to leg up, I'll go study this, I'll figure out how to do basic HTML and CSS, whatever that might be. Obviously not everybody here is in the same world that I am, but look for ways to elevate yourself. Look for those opportunities that are going to set you aside from everybody else that you're working with currently, that will make you a little more unique and a little more special, especially the earlier in your career, the better. It makes things much easier. I can confirm later on down the line, if you have the intelligence and the education to have those conversations and to be able to set yourself apart from that. So yes, I know it's an extra ask, and everybody has, work commitments and life commitments and all sorts of things that take us away. But as much as possible, listen to podcasts. That's a big thing right there. I mean, you can easily do that, right? Read the blogs, go to the classes, get the certification, whatever little things you can do to elevate yourself in terms of time and money up front to get the additional education, I think pays off in spades, as you continue on in your career.
Yeah, definitely. That's super helpful. And is there anything specifically that you think like one specific thing that you invested in your time or your money that you think has been so beneficial to you, or something you wish you had early in your career?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, I've kind of already called it out, so I won't harp on that too much, but specifically for me, I think the assertiveness training, and that's actually something I'm working with another designer now to see if we can find her an assertive coach. That's not always something that women, for better or worse, inherently have in our world. And so I think that's fine to just call out whatever that trait is that's going to get you a seat at the table and make you more confident, right? But I think at the broader view, not so personal, is figure out what folks that you work with on a daily basis do, and then go learn that. So whether it is product and you need to, go learn Scrum, or it's engineering and you need to go learn at least some basic code, be able to have those conversations, especially when those other teams are going to push back on you and say, well, we can't do that because XYZ. Be able to have the counter argument and be educated in that counter argument so you can actually, sort of go toe to toe with them. Things I wish I had done. Oh gosh, I'm sure there's probably a list if I really sat around and thought about it. I wish I'd done more coding. I wish I could really have those deep conversations. That's something we talk a lot about now at Home Depot. We're switching CMS platforms. We're working on new sort of repository and component-based things. And I can have, the basic sort of conversations, but when they get really deep into things and tell me that they can't build this new component because XYZ, there are definitely times that I wish I could understand that conversation just a little bit more so I could have that pushback. I wish, there you go. I thought of one other thing. As I got older and as I had more experiences, I figured out how to have the business side conversations. But if I could go back in time, I probably would take some more business management courses, because it's very common in our world to forget that no matter what we're building, no matter what we're doing, it does come down to money. Like, let's just get down to brass tacks. It comes down to money. And so having the ability to have those conversations with the folks that hold the purse strings at your company and say why this is a good, avenue for us to chase down, whether it's clicks, whether it's just basic revenue, whether it's conversions, whatever the thing might be, being able to understand those business needs and have those sorts of money related conversations definitely get people to see you in a new light, no matter what field you're working in, quite honestly.
Yeah, I think that's a great mix of, different things, the assertiveness as well as coding, those hands-on skills. That's a great mix of things looking back. Mindy, anything that you wanted to add, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think those were all such good tips and pointers and really great thoughts. And I agree with everything that Jana said. I think that what I would add is that, honestly, and I don't say this to scare people or to be big brothery, but, kind of every interaction that you potentially have with someone within your organization is either, I think it's John Maxwell that says it's either a brand deposit or a brand withdrawal. And so I think that knowing who you are really, really well, being very well in touch with yourself and who you are and who you want to show up as in this world, what your goals are. And then, like Jana was saying, know what the goals of your organization are, know, how the business works and what your role is in that. And all of those things kind of play into, I believe, if you really have a firm grasp on all of those things, it's going to go a long way toward ensuring that every interaction that you have, every meeting that you sit in, every project that you deliver is going to be a brand deposit rather than a brand withdrawal.
Yeah. And as a motivational speaker and writer, when you were first developing that for yourself, are there ways that you got to know yourself or really defined what that meant to you in terms of, creating your brand?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. It's been an interesting experience because I was not a brand expert coming out of the corporate world. And so going into business for myself, and particularly where I'm kind of the brand, was really, I had to swim pretty fast. And so I really had to invest in some people to coach me and teach me things. And one of the things that I really realized was that I was going to need to know exactly who I was and exactly what my values were and exactly what my mission and my vision and like I said, and my values were, because all of that shows up every single day in every social media post, in every speech that I give, in any service that I provide for anybody. And so that was something that was really important to hone in on early on. And you go into it and it feels like one of those Captain Obvious things where you're like, well, of course I know who I am, but I actually didn't, I sort of did in a vague, broad, sweeping kind of way. But when I sat down to actually write down what those things were and to prioritize those things, and to differentiate between what I actually was and what I wanted to be, all of those sorts of things, it's definitely something that I think for any of us, as well as you may think you know yourself, I think it's really good to be intentional about those things and visit them and make sure that you're clear.
And that actually brings us really well into the second question, which kind of touches on that as well. So if you have anything else to add here, but before pushing a narrative of a personal brand, you need to know yourself. So how does knowing yourself align with developing your personal brand?
Yeah, and here I think all I would say is just that if you don't know yourself, it's hard to know your brand. And so, if you're unclear on what you want out of life, who you are, what you want to contribute, what you want to be able to look back on in 50 years and have accomplished or be proud of, all of those things, I don't think that you can create any of that without knowing who you really truly are. And one of the mentors that I connected myself to put me through an exercise of really defining those things for myself. I have a list of, like 8 values that I, are sort of my ride or die kind of things that I want to exemplify in every single thing that I do. So I think I can't overemphasize enough how important knowing who you are is, so that you can go off and successfully project that person.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Wendy, for that. Jana, did you have anything else to add on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to make sure, can you hear me okay right now?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. This is one of those
Yep.
moments where life converges with work, right? Welcome to remote working, everyone. Who I thought when I started, Mindy said it beautifully, but who I thought I was and what I wanted and what my goals were when I started are vastly different from the person that is sitting here today, right? So know what you want, have your goal in mind, figure it out, but at the same time, be kind and compassionate to yourself. You will, I'm giggling because I'm thinking back on who I was all those decades ago, right? Life is going to throw you all sorts of curveballs that there's no way you're going to see coming. I started off in marketing originally, hated it, right? Couldn't have seen that coming. You know, there's so many things that are going to happen to each and every one of us that will change your goals and change your passions and give you different outlooks. So it's also okay if you're sitting out there right now going, I don't know what I want. I have no idea. That's fine. Be nice, be kind to yourself. That's okay. But figure out what is sort of those core things that are important to you. For me, I tend to introduce myself as I'm the overly transparent manager. I'm probably going to say things to you that I shouldn't, but I tend to just be much more honest in that sense. And I don't mean it in a negative way. It's not about a negative feedback situation, but I just prefer a much more open dialogue. You know, I tend to tell my managers that I really don't want you to see me as your boss or your senior manager. I just want us to be a team. Don't look at it as there's some, you know, weird hierarchical thing like that. That's just not my brand. That's just not. I feel much better in an environment where everybody sees themselves as a team and we're all going towards the one common goal. So whatever that is, if it's empathy, right? I tend to have lots and lots of empathy for my teammates and my players. So it doesn't always have to be strategic. If that's just not the thing that you know you're going for right now, that's fine. Figure out what those core, just you components are and run with that for the time being.
Yeah. And I think something you said actually pulls us into another question, which is a personal brand should reflect where you are currently in your career. So what are some tips for those who might not be ready to be fully authentic in their brand? So depending on where you are, you know, in your career, have you had, you know, instances where, you know, you have advice for someone who might be in a place where they're not in a career where they're not ready to be authentically themselves?
I'm going to ask a question with a question, right? I'm going to play the UXer. Are you not ready to be who you are because you don't know who you are yet? Or are you in an environment that doesn't foster you to be authentic? Because I would challenge, if you're in an environment, any of you right now, that doesn't allow you to be your authentic self, leave. There are plenty of jobs that I promise you, there are plenty of places out there who will embrace you for your authentic self. And don't stay, none of us should ever stay at a place that you hate. We've all had that job. We've all had that job where we go home and we cry every day or we scream every day or, you know, whatever it might be. We eat all the Oreos in the house, whatever it is, right? Don't stay there. I promise you there are some place that it's going to embrace you for whatever you have to bring to the table. So if that's the situation, leave. Go start looking today. Reach out to me. You know, Home Depot's always hiring, whatever. But it's if you don't know who you are and so you're not sure how to be authentic, or you know, again, it comes back to that UX principle. So I'm sorry for those that don't work in that field, but don't be afraid to fail. I mean, that's the thing that we always say in design, right? Like, you're not going to know if you don't try it. So if it's this that you're fearful, just try it. It's fine to fail. It's better to fail as quickly as you can and try something else. But if it's the environment that's giving you, you know, sort of that toxic mentality where you can't be who you are, go find another place. Unless you're in an environment where you think you can foster change and you think you can move the culture needle, great, stay, do that. I've done that. That's also very fulfilling. But if that's just not a rock that you're prepared to roll uphill, it's fine. It's fine to say, I'll go find my tribe, because I promise you they are out there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think people in the chat like that as well. I don't know if you saw that come through, but that was advice that I think resonated with everyone. Mindy, did you have anything to add there?
Yeah, what Jana said was so good. I think that I have a couple of thoughts, and I think that just like she said, if you feel like you're not being yourself, I would also encourage you to ask yourself why. And I think that because if you don't feel like you can be yourself, or if you're just not being yourself, if you're not being authentic, there's probably a reason why. And I think it's important to pinpoint that, because, like, just again, like Jana said, it's miserable to be somewhere where you feel like you can't be yourself. And we have all been there. And I can tell you, it's a terrible place to be. So I think that that's just a really important question to ask, is why is it that I feel like I can't be who I really am? The next thing that I want to say is that, I'm big on mentors, and I'm big on role models. And so I would really encourage people to watch the people around them, because if you are early on in your career, I think that it can really serve you well to identify the people that you really admire and look up to. And kind of study them a little bit and figure out what it is that they're doing that's so effective, because again, like has already been said, I think who we are and what our values are do evolve over time, and life circumstances affect it, our jobs affect it, the places we work, who we work with, all of those things affect it. And so I am also not the same person that I was 20 years ago, and the same things are not important to me that were important to me 20 years ago. And so I think that it's really good to look around you and notice people whose style you like, whose communication style you like, who's accomplishing things and achieving things, and see if you can forge a relationship with them. And, best case scenario, maybe ask them to be a mentor of yours, because I think that it is okay to have a set of things, or a set of values or attributes that you maybe know today, right now, are who you are, and are part of the genetic makeup of who you are. But I think that it's also okay to have things that you aspire to be. And I put people through an exercise. It's a slightly different exercise than what I would do in the context of this conversation. But one of the things that I have people do is look at scenarios and things that they've gotten through that are hard in their past, and write down the attributes and the things that they had to employ to get through those things, like creativity or problem solving, or resourcefulness, and things like that. But then I have them identify a couple of people who have been through struggles, or in this case, maybe people in your workplace that you admire, kind of like I was talking about a little while ago, and write down maybe what the skills or the characteristics are that you see them employ, or that you would imagine that they're employing to be as effective as they are at what they do. And then you've got two lists, right? And I encourage people to put those lists somewhere where they see them regularly, because you've got a list of who you already are, and then you've got a list of who you want to be. And it can be a really good sort of constant reminder to you as you go through your day of, who it is that you're trying to show up as, and potentially evolve into as your career grows.
Yeah, I love that advice, Mindy. And I think that kind of connects back to, knowing yourself and needing to know yourself. And it's sometimes a little bit easier to go look and see a mentor that you want to be like than to do that, I think, at least, than to do that work to find out exactly who you are, and that who you want to be, or how you're going to get there. So I think that's such great advice, to look for someone who, it's so much easier for me, at least, to look into someone else and see things that I want to be. So I love that advice.
But at the same time, I will add that, we can be hard on ourselves. And I would never want this to be an exercise that caused someone to beat themselves up because maybe they don't feel like they fill those shoes yet, because you will, especially if you're intentional and thoughtful and you're making choices that are as good as they can possibly be, then you'll get there,
Definitely. All right, we'll hop into the next question. So this one's more about your presence outside of, yourself and with others. So does a personal brand need to look like a social media presence, or what other ways are there to create a brand? So Mindy, if you want to start off on that one.
Yeah, I hate to say it again, but I go back to the statement that I made before about, I think every interaction and everything that you do translates into either that brand deposit or that brand withdrawal. And so I think it's important as you go through your day to be mindful of the things that you're saying. And are you a positive person? Are you a negative person? Are you a solution oriented person, or are you a problem oriented person? Things like that. If you go to a meeting to work on a project or talk through something with someone in another department, that is a reflection on who you are and what your personal brand is. And as a manager of teams, I saw it all the time where people would do things to hurt their personal brand because they weren't being thoughtful about how they were coming across in person every day, and so I really just challenge people to think about that. And it's an old saying, but it's an old, it's kind of an old saying for a reason, but you do catch more flies with honey. And I think that keeping that very basic thing in mind, golden reward to how you are communicating with people, connecting with people, and what you're kind of causing them to believe about you and what you're capable of.
Yeah, that's great. Jana, did you have anything there you wanted to add?
I'm going to let everybody in on a secret here. If you think when we're looking at your resume that we don't go and look and see if we can find you on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or anything, we do. We totally do. We do. So just be aware of that. I think it's one of those things where it's up to you, right? Because you should be your authentic self, workplace be damned. We all ultimately, work is a very small part of our lives. So be who you are. But Mindy is 1000% right. Totally spot on. You are crafting what you want to be seen as. Any of you could go find me on Instagram today. My profile is completely open. You can see anything going all the way. Feel free. You'll see lots of dogs and, all sorts of family things. I did that on purpose, and I made that choice on purpose a very long time ago. But you are going to be able to get a sense of who I am from seeing my life, through Instagram. But B, you're not going to see anything controversial there. You're not going to know my political leanings. You're not going to know any of those things. That I'm a human and I have my own belief systems and I have my own moral, ethical, whatever principles. You're not going to find that on Instagram. And that is a very conscious choice. So you can still see who I am, but you have to be cognizant of what brand are you trying to portray? What do you want people to see? Whereas, Facebook and Twitter are very much more locked down sort of experiences for me. You can still go look at those things, certainly, but I'm not going to make public facing posts on political, religious, whatever sort of leanings. It's none of your business. And that's fine. You have your own life. You should have your own life. Be authentic to that self, but be aware that people do go and look at it, and whatever experience you are cultivating, your employers or your potential employers we do go look. I hate to tell you, but we do. So it's better just to make those choices up front. what brand do you want to build, and what are you willing to share and what are you not willing to share? And you will reap the consequences one way or the other. So what does that look like for you?
Mhm.
Yeah. And Mindy, I think you've created a bit more of a brand using LinkedIn, at least from some of the posts you do. And it seems to be a way that you use LinkedIn. Do you have any advice for if you do want to use a platform to start building your personal brand?
Yeah, I'm trying to think what I want to start with, because there's, I think when I started to get more effective with my brand, posting anything on social media is hard, and social media strategy is hard, and knowing what to post every day is hard, and it's a lot of work. But what helped me, and when I felt like I kind of turned the corner on that and sort of figured it out, was when I defined, and I've got a document, I'm not kidding, that defines my mission, vision, and values, and the 4 content pillars of my business. And so I'll just share with you, I've got it in front of me. My 4 content pillars are advocacy for the disabled community, things like air travel, fashion, universal design, all of those sorts of things. And then personal development and personal enablement. So navigating adversity, goal setting, improving ourselves. Health and wellness is my 3rd pillar. So things like that I'm passionate about, like meditation and healthy recipes and nutrition. And then organizational modernization is what I'm calling it, and ethics. So things like diversity and inclusion, and accessibility in the workplace, corporate responsibility, and product development, all of those things. And so that honestly is my cheat sheet for what I post every day. And I post from one of those categories pretty much every day, and I just rotate through them. And so that's a really easy way, I think, to use social media to build your brand and to communicate what you're about, and how you want to communicate about it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, and cheat sheet is what I need for social media. So
Yeah.
Any way to make it easier.
It makes it so much easier, I'm telling you.
I really like this next question too. So a part of establishing a brand is to position yourself as an authority or thought expert. What are the first steps to establishing credibility within your space and backing it up with actions? Do either of you want to take that one first?
Yeah, that's a big one. First step, know your damn space. Like, I mean, it's just like we all worked with that person, for better or worse, that says, well, I know all about this, I'm an expert. Oh, do you have a doctorate in this? Okay, tell me more. Whatever that thing is, if you're if you really are going to consider yourself and sell yourself, and you want your brand to be an expert, great, then go make yourself an expert. So don't just, sort of give the bluster of it. Take the time, whatever your space is, go learn those extra things. And I talked about that a little bit, kind of go outside, do the Gantt chart, right? Like, go outside the main circle a little bit. So you'll be able to have a more cross-functional conversation around things, because you are not the only person at that table. You are not probably the only one that has, some sort of stake in that question or problem or whatever it is you're dealing with. So you need to be able to understand other people's positions and why they might agree or disagree, or better yet, how can you sell them on your line of thinking? So I think, first of all, just acknowledging that none of us know everything. None of us are an expert in everything. It's fine. But don't also pretend that you are. Don't be afraid to acknowledge when you don't know something. It's much easier to just say, I honestly don't know the answer. I'll go look into it. And that's fine, because if you do get a reputation as somebody who just sorts of, kind of spews out things and doesn't actually know the full picture, you will get that reputation. That will get around, and that's not going to be helpful either. So, do the homework that you need to do. That's one of my passions. I'm not going to lie. And I think that's why I stepped away from being an individual contributor a little bit and more into a managerial role, because you do get a lot more high level strategic thinking of where are we trying to go? What is our North Star? What is our rally cry? But that does mean you have to understand many more aspects of your business. So I think a lot of that is education. But the other thing that I try to tell folks in my sphere, and this isn't just about design, always be curious. Always. I see this dealing with, parents that are aging as well. So I think this expands outside of just even a work conversation and a brain conversation. The minute you stop being curious about things in your world, I think is the minute that your soul and your brain start to die. I mean, legitimately, like always stay curious, always question your own thought processes and your beliefs and things that you think are right or wrong. And I think if you're always willing to personally challenge yourself and the ways that you think about things or answers that you've accepted as truth, you will find that quite frankly, it's much more interesting. It's a much less boring life if you're always willing to say, am I really right about that though? Or have things changed and evolved? And maybe I need to re-examine how I think about this. I think just being open to saying that you are wrong and challenging your own ways of doing things and thinking about things goes a long way to elevating yourself as a thought leader, quite honestly.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I think people who are inquisitive are just more interesting anyways. They come up with interesting questions that you don't think about. So I love that. Mindy, did you have anything as well?
Yeah, it's funny. As Jana was talking, I heard my mom's voice in my head, because one of the things that she used to say all the time was that it's better to say, I don't know, than to open your mouth and prove it. And so that is something that I have always adhered to. Yeah. And, people aren't dumb, and they know if you're tap dancing and you're trying to, to come up with a good answer that has no foundation of anything based in fact. And so, I think that it's really, really important to be able to say, I don't know. And I think there are a lot of people out there that think that, maybe that's a sign of weakness, or it puts you at a disadvantage or something like that. But I think that it's a strength. If you can say that, the key is you find out and you follow it up. So that's the critical piece about it. I also, I had in my last job in the corporate world, I was leading a big cross-functional team. It was a global cross-functional team with representation from pretty much every part of the company. And I learned a really valuable lesson in that experience. And what it was that we were all there to solve the same problem, but we were looking at that problem through very different lenses. And we all had different priorities for wanting the problem solved. And I think that was something that if I had really grasped a hold of that earlier in my career and understood that, it could have benefited me in a lot of situations in my career, because I think sometimes there's this natural tension between certain departments and things. And sometimes it can be healthy, but sometimes it isn't. And I think that knowing that sometimes you're actually on the same side, you're just going through different doors or something, And so so that I think is something that can be really helpful in just the way that you present yourself, the way that you talk to people, and the way that you position yourself as an authority or an expert or a thought leader. And by the way, I think that it's much more impressive to me to be a thought leader than an expert, because I do kind of, and maybe it's my own connotation, but I almost think about the definition of an expert as someone who knows it all. And like Jana said, we don't. And so I think that, maybe strike the word expert and think about being a thought leader, because that is a lot more interesting, like they were saying.
Yeah, I really like that. That's great. So we have we have 15 minutes left, so we have some questions from the Q&A. So I'll start off with one of those actually. So any advice for someone who is very new to the tech world and is dealing with a lot of imposter syndrome? I'm only 24 and I feel like everyone around me is talking about pivoting into new roles and I'm just trying to make it through the day. I love that question. I think that's great. And I think a lot of people are lying if they say they haven't experienced that too. So do either of you want to start it off with that one?
I would say that you're not alone, first and foremost, and probably the people who have been at that company for 20 years have imposter syndrome, and it's one of those things that it comes down to, I think, self-confidence. And I think that's something that we all struggle with. And, I think that if you can, like we've been talking about, understand who you are, really get in touch with yourself and who you are and what your current strengths are and what you bring to the table, then you've got something to work with. And I think understanding that there may be deficits in your knowledge at this point, but we all have deficits in our knowledge, no matter how far into our careers we are. And I think that, again, if you're curious, if you ask questions, if you immerse yourself as much as you can in what your team and your company is doing, I think people are going to respect that, and I don't know that it's the sort of thing that's ever going to make imposter syndrome go away. I don't know that it does, honestly. I've talked to so many people recently who are 40, 50 years old, and they get up on stages and speak and they feel like imposters. It's just, I think it's sort of the nature of the human condition and a bit of a lack of self-confidence. But what I can tell you with absolute certainty is that if you try, if you make an effort, and if you look for ways to try new things and get involved with new things, people will respect that, and that'll make you feel better. So it's, that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, if you think that there's not a part of me that wonders why the heck I'm here today and why they picked me from, I have no idea. I just run an e-commerce website that sells hammers. I don't know. I'm more than happy to be here and talk to you all day long about whatever you'd like to chat about. No, everybody feels that way at some point. If they don't, they're a narcissist, and you should go the other way anyway. But no, we all feel like that. But I can absolutely sympathize with starting off earlier in your career, or even in those of us switching to a new workplace. Inevitably, that new workplace is going to have terms and definitions for things that you're going to sit in a meeting and just be going, yeah, you have no idea what they're talking about. It's fine. Fake it till you make it is honestly, apart from what Mindy said, the only other piece of advice I can offer there, because she's absolutely right. But fake it till you make it. Carry around a notebook. Still to this day, carry around a notebook, write down those words and those terms and whatever the subject matter is that they're talking about, that you're just smiling and nodding, going, I have no idea, no clue. Write it down, Google it later. It's fine. I promise you, everybody is doing that. I promise you, we still do that 20 years later into your career. There are things you're like, I don't know, I'll figure it out later. It's fine. There are always going to be those moments, but the best thing to do is just embrace it, fake it till you make it, but don't be lazy about it. Write down the word, go Google it, go figure out what they are, what they're talking about. And Mindy said it earlier, look for the mentors that are around you, the people that you can pull aside and just say, hey, what was that about? Like, I don't get it. And try your best, although we will all do it. And I'll be honest, you'll do it forever. Try not to compare yourself to people around you, especially if they're talking about moving into different roles or promoting. Everybody's on a different journey. Everybody, pivots at some point in their career. Everybody figures out that they like this or they don't like that. Try as much as you can not to compare yourself to other folks or see it as a competition, simply because you will just drive yourself crazy, not because you shouldn't have ambition or goals. You just be kind to yourself. I mean, that's the only other thing I can offer there. I promise you, none of them are as smart as they are trying to convey to you. None of us are. It's fine. Just do your best. That's the best you can do.
Actually, it's funny. I mentioned that I just started working for the Muscular Dystrophy Association, and I think it was my third day there, and I'm working with people who have been there for 10, 20 years. And I got on the phone with my boss after another meeting with another department, and she asked me how things were going and how I was feeling. And I said, so I had my first oh crap moment where I realized exactly how much I don't know. And we both had a really good laugh about it. And so, I think there's a time and a place too, just to be transparent about it, and people want to help. So yeah, just have confidence, have faith that you'll get there. You'll pick it all up.
You will.
Yeah, I think people want to help is great as well, because they really do. In most organizations, there's people who want to help you, get to different places that you want to be. We have another good one. So it says, thank you so much for your views, thoughts, and stories. Question, how do you spark others to be self-inquisitive, to look to learn from their experiences rather than attribute events to external factors?
Read it one more time, Hannah. I'm a processor.
Okay. How do you spark others to be self-inquisitive, to look to learn from their experiences rather than attribute events to external factors? Sorry, I can't read it as attribute.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Is not quick enough.
How do you spark people to do it? That's a hard one. It's I tell people to do it all the time, because I think that our life experiences it's the only way that not the only way that we learn. You can sit in a classroom and learn, but life is your best teacher, and so I think that anyone who can be, sort of retrospective about what's occurred, what they've done, what the situation was and wasn't, and take away the bits from it that they can learn from it. I think that that's actually what kind of sets someone apart from other people and sets them up for success. If you can look at a situation and take away, maybe let go of what didn't go well and take away instead what you can learn from it, I think that you're going to be a much more successful person in the future. And if you know that and you trust it and you do it, I think that's the only way. I don't know. That's the only way that I know to kind of explain it. I'm struggling. Jana, what about you?
That is whoever wrote
really
that gets, you're either a plant or you get the gold star. It's a good one, but it is tough. I'll tell you why, and maybe you're wondering why we're struggling with it. I think because at the base, I can't force any of you to do anything. Yeah. I can't force any of my people, and I have this how you can't force people to care. You can't, let's be blunt. You can't force people to be ambitious. You can't force them to be inquisitive. You can't force them to be curiously minded. Now, here's the terrible sports related, so apologies in advance, but it works for me. This is the analogy I give everybody everywhere I go, regardless. In my area, in my section, maybe it applies to others, maybe it doesn't. There's two kinds of people, right? And I know we love these tropes, right? And reducing people, but this is true, at least in my world. There are people that will see the football on the ground, stand there and stare at it. And there are people that will pick it up and run. You don't know where you're running. You don't know what's happening. You don't know the score of the game. You don't just pick it up and run. That's what I need. I need people that are going to pick up the football and run. Don't come to me and say that we have problem XYZ if you haven't already thought of a solution. Now, your answer might be, I want to think of a solution. I don't know. That's fine. Again, I don't know is a perfectly fine answer, but it doesn't mean that you just don't get to think about what the problem solving, statement is. You have to be the person. You have to be the person that's going to pick up the football and run. Don't wait for me to delegate something to you. Say, I see that there's a problem here and I see there's an opportunity here and I'm going to pick it up and run. Is that cool? And 9 times out of 10, I'm going to say yes, because that takes something off of my plate. Come back to me in a week. Tell me what you think. That's going to get you much more on my radar and is going to build your brand as somebody who will get it done, sorry, I know we're recording, than the person that is just going to stand there and stare at it and wait for me to say, hey, Bob, can you go do this for me? Like, just do it. Just go do it. Chances are I'm not going to say no. It is going to be much rarer for me to say no if you're willing to do that than, you know, for me to stand around and figure out, oh, I should be delegating all these things to all these other people. So I think the truth is, I can't make you, I can't force you. I can tell you that analogy. I can tell you where I don't see you taking enough initiative. We had somebody recently that said that got passed over for a promotion. They didn't understand why. I had no idea you wanted it. Well, how do you not know I want it? I signed up, I got interviewed because you've been working here for X amount of, you know, months and years, and I've never seen you take an active interest in it. I've never seen you sign up in your spare time to say, I want to help with that, or can I help with that, or can I do that? And if you're not making those inroads and you're not building your brand that way and being seen as somebody who is going to help and, you know, step into the whatever dumpster fire it is that we are all collectively dealing with, then I'm not going to think of you that way. I'm simply not. Like, we all have too much on our plates, regardless of our position and title. We have lives, we have all these other things, right? So I cannot make you be that person. I can't. And I have those designers on my team, and I will have them on every company, and you will all interact with those people as well that are just fine at the level they're at, and that's where they want to stay. There's nothing wrong with that either. But if that's not where you want to be, and if that's not how you want to be seen, and that's not the brand you're trying to build, then don't. But you can't wait on me to make you more curiously minded. Right. And in life too, it's the same thing. Do I wonder why people don't question their own thought processes and beliefs? And yeah, all the time. Like, that's just being human. Go ahead, Mindy. I'm sorry.
No. One more thing that occurred to me while you were talking, and I may steal that football thing, because that was brilliant. But the other thing that occurred to me is that I think it comes down to what kind of, like, how do you want to live your life? If you want to be the kind of person who's constantly looking back with regret at maybe what didn't happen, or what you didn't do, or what you didn't say, then fine. But you're going to be a much happier person if you instead take away the lessons from that situation and show some initiative and all of that. I also have a quote in another quote. I'm a big quote person, but another quote came to mind, and unfortunately I can't remember who said it, but basically it comes down to regret weighs tons, failure weighs pounds. And so if you try something and you fail and you learn from it, great. That's one of the best case scenarios. But if you don't do something and you regret it for the rest of your life, that weighs you down for the rest of your life.
Yeah, beautifully said. And it's the live, laugh, love on a pillow, but it's the Socrates thing of the unexamined life is not worth living. I mean, it's not. Like, I can't make you.
Yeah, well, I love, that was a great kind of quote and both of your stories to end on, since we're coming to the end of the hour. But thank you both so much. I think this was super helpful to me. I'm hoping that Elizabeth has some good notes from this, because I'll definitely be stealing them. I thought everything was really helpful, and thank you to everyone who came and asked great questions as well. Those were really great to address as well. I'll hand it over to Elizabeth if there's anything else.
You pretty much summed it up, but just wanted to say thank you one more time while we're still live. We also did record the session. We'll pass it over to Twitter so that they can share it out, and all your colleagues can get this great recording and all that advice as well. I know everyone's scrambling before the long weekend as well. But yeah, like I said, feel free to add any of us on LinkedIn. We want to expand our networks. We want to get involved, show you all the great other projects we're working on as well. So without further ado, I'm going to close us down, but thank you again for all your time. It was absolutely wonderful.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure. Appreciate it.
Perfect. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, wait, one sec.
Yeah.
Did you want to say anything else last?
No, I just wanted to say thank you guys for, agreeing to do this. I mean, that's really nice of you. And I was there, luckily I was able to attend the event. So I definitely
Good.
enjoyed every bit of it.
Mhm. Okay, wonderful.
Good. All right.
Great.
Right.
See you guys. Take
Bye.
care.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks
Have a
so
long
much,
Bye.
have a long
everyone.
weekend.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, thanks. Bye-bye.